So imagine someone just, tosses you the keys to a 200-mile-an-hour sports car.
Okay, I mean, that sounds like a pretty good day.
Right. The engine is roaring, the doors are open, the open road is practically just like begging for you to hit the gas. But there is just one massive, glaring problem. You have absolutely no idea where the brakes are.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's terrifying.
You have zero understanding of how to handle a sharp turn at high speeds, and honestly, you don't even really know what the road signs mean. Handing someone that kind of raw, unfiltered power without first installing like an operating system in their own head for how to handle it, it isn't a gift. It is basically an accident waiting to happen.
That is the perfect way to visualize the exact challenge we are tackling in today's deep dive. Because, if you are stepping into the world of tech right now, modern AI is absolutely that sports car.
Yeah, go.
It is undoubtedly the most powerful learning engine ever created, but raw computational power, it does not automatically translate to actual internalized human knowledge.
Which brings us to our specific mission today. So, as part of the Skill Wanderer team, we have designed this deep dive as a companion guide. It's specifically for you, the learner, to conquer your very first major assignment in the AI-First Learning for Tech Careers course.
Right, the big one.
Exactly. We are focusing squarely on the requirements for Lesson 6. And actually, just a quick logistical note before we get moving. While the brand new Skill Wanderer Dojo is currently in active development, the legacy dojo is undergoing a migration.
Yeah, that migration is a big project.
It is. So until that migration is fully complete, you will find your workspace waiting for you over at legacy-dojo.skill-wanderer.com.
And wherever you happen to log in, this assignment is going to look a little different than you might expect. It doesn't ask you to use AI to learn how to code a Python script or, how to query a SQL database.
Or like design a user interface or whatever.
Right. Instead, it asks you to work on this intentionally meta topic.
Let's unpack that term right away, actually. Because meta can sound a little, I don't know, abstract. By that, we mean you aren't using AI to learn a hard technical skill today. You are using AI to learn, how to learn with AI.
Exactly. You are building the guardrails. Before you can use these tools to chase down programming or data analysis skills, you have to establish a personal workflow.
Right.
And the goal of this assignment is to spend a strictly time-boxed 45 to 60 minutes actively wrestling with the AI. You're going to build a customized, reusable learning framework.
I love that you said time box, 45 to 60 minutes, no more.
Yep, the time frame is highly deliberate. You will spend the first chunk of time defining what responsible AI learning actually looks like for your specific situation. Then, you collaborate with the AI to design the workflow.
Okay.
Finally, you verify what you discussed, extract the actual knowledge, and reflect on the process.
I have to have a hit pause here, though.
Yeah.
Because the very first phase of this assignment, it requires writing out a highly specific problem brief before you even open a chat window.
Yes. Step 1, define the problem first.
Right. You are required to clearly define your current problem, your past context with AI, your ultimate goal, and the specific unknown you are trying to solve. And honestly, that feels a bit like doing the dishes before the dishwasher arrives.
I get that a lot.
Right, because if I have this hyper-intelligent assistant at my fingertips, why am I spending 10 minutes mapping out my own confusion before I type a single prompt? Isn't the whole point of AI that it figures out what I need?
Well, it is incredibly tempting to think that way. But let's look at the actual cognitive mechanism at play here. If you don't anchor the AI with those specific parameters, it is basically forced to hallucinate your needs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, let's say you just jump into the interface and type, teach me how to learn with AI. The system is going to generate this highly polished, deeply authoritative-sounding list of generic tips.
The bullet points, the classic AI bullet points.
Exactly, the perfect bullet points. And you'll read through them, you'll nod along, and you will feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment. But you haven't actually learned anything. You have simply consumed text.
It's just the illusion of competence. Like you feel like you're driving fast, but you are actually just sitting in the passenger seat while the AI drives you in circles.
Precisely. AI should never, ever be asked to guess your baseline. So let's apply this to a real-world scenario. Imagine a learner trying to pick up Python. If they just ask for a Python tutorial, the AI gives them a generic syllabus.
Right.
But if they take the time to define their context, saying, my problem is I get overwhelmed by syntax. My context is I know a little HTML. My goal is to write a script that sorts my emails. The unknown I am stuck on is how loops work.
Wow. He's way more specific.
Exactly. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts completely. You, the learner, are setting the directional GPS. You maintain ownership of the intellectual journey.
So setting that baseline directly informs the next phase of the assignment, the actual engagement, right?
And two, the first prompt.
You take those parameters, your problem, your context, your goal, your unknown, and you weave them into your opening prompt.
Oh.
But, and this is wild, the assignment provides a very specific instruction that you absolutely must attach to the end of that first prompt.
It's non-negotiable.
You have to command the AI with the phrase, quote, "Do not just give me a polished answer. Guide me like a thinking partner."
Yeah. Those words act as a behavioral override for the AI. Because, large language models are fundamentally aligned to be deferential, cheerful, and immediately helpful.
They just want to please you.
Right. Their default mode is to act as an answer machine. By explicitly commanding it to act as a thinking partner, to explain core principles, and to ask you questions, you are forcing the system out of its default mode and into a collaborative state.
But even with that override, the course material is really adamant that the first response from the AI is never the final word. It actually reminds me of the opening bid in a real estate negotiation.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like, if you are buying a house and the seller says the price is $1 million, you don't just smile and hand over your checkbook. You negotiate.
You definitely negotiate.
You look for structural flaws.
Yeah.
You push for concessions. And that is where the follow-up questions come in. Step 3. The assignment requires you to push back at least 3 times. Why is that?
Well, the source material highlights a critical truth about human cognition here. The first prompt, even a great one, merely sets the stage. The follow-up questions are where the actual intellectual wrestling happens.
That completely flips the popular narrative on its head, doesn't it? I mean, we spend so much time in the tech space obsessing over prompt engineering and crafting the perfect opening command.
Oh, entirely.
But you were saying the real magic happens in the interrogation that follows.
Because strong follow-ups expose assumptions. They expose trade-offs and risks that a polished summary deliberately hides. Like when you ask the AI a follow-up question like, where do learners usually become too passive when following this advice? Or what would a genuinely terrible version of this learning workflow look like?
I love that second one. What does a terrible version look like?
Right. You are intentionally breaking the smooth surface of the AI's logic. You are turning it into an active sparring partner.
You are basically forcing the machine to define the limits of its own usefulness. Another brilliant follow-up suggested in the materials is asking, how can I tell whether I actually understand this concept or if I only copy an explanation?
That one is so crucial.
It's such a piercing question because it strikes at the heart of why we are building this workflow in the first place. You have to know when to turn the machine off.
Which brings us to a really critical junction in the learning process, the reality check.
Step 5, verify one important point.
Exactly. So you have sparred with the AI, you have pushed back, and the AI has generated a wealth of fascinating principles and strategies. But how do you prevent yourself from simply falling for its confident tone?
The trust but verify phase. And, I mean, it sounds great in theory, but let's be practical here. If I am using AI to learn a completely new technical topic, I don't necessarily have the expertise to know if the AI is confidently lying to me.
That is a very real challenge, which is exactly why the assignment requires you to isolate just one important claim, rule, or recommendation from your conversation and systematically verify it.
Guess one?
Just one. You don't need to be an expert to test structural integrity. You might compare the AI's claim against one of your early Module 1 lessons from the Dojo. Or you might try explaining the concept out loud to an empty room to see where your own logic falters.
Testing your own understanding.
Right. Or, you might test the rule against a hypothetical scenario.
I have to say, my absolute favorite verification method mentioned in the materials, and this honestly feels like a cognitive superpower, is asking the AI to argue against its own recommendation.
Yes, it's so effective.
It is literally like cross-examining your own star witness on the stand.
Yeah.
You take the workflow it just praised and you say, okay, now tell me why this workflow will actually cause massive memory retention issues for a beginner.
What makes that approach so incredibly effective is that it actively bypasses the AI's alignment to please you. You force it to highlight the edge cases and the failures of its own logic. And the crucial insight for the learner here is that the goal is not to fact-check an entire encyclopedia. The goal is to build the muscle of skepticism.
Oh, right. Fighting against the gravity of shallow learning.
Exactly.
Shallow learning being, that dangerous state where you nod along, tell yourself, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And then 3 days later, You stare at a blank screen and realize you couldn't explain the concept if your life depended on it.
And to combat that exact phenomenon, the workflow you build must include what the assignment calls a warning sign. You have to articulate exactly how you will notice when the AI has replaced your own thinking.
Okay, so what does that warning sign actually look like in practice? Is it just like a vague feeling of laziness?
Well, it often manifests as a sudden lack of friction.
Interesting. Lack of friction.
Yeah. If you are learning a complex new skill and everything feels perfectly smooth like, if you haven't experienced a single moment of confusion or a need to pause, scratch your head, and look away from the screen, that is a massive warning sign.
Wow.
True cognitive development requires productive struggle. If the AI is removing all the struggle, it is entirely likely that it is removing the learning too.
That makes total sense. So, okay, you established your warning signs, you have cross-examined the AI, and you have sparred your way to some genuinely brilliant insights. But now we hit a new problem.
Capturing the lightning.
Yes, because this amazing intellectual dialogue is now trapped in a sprawling, messy chat log. If you close your laptop right now, the learning basically evaporates into the digital ether.
Which is why the assignment requires you to consolidate this entire experience into a concrete single-page artifact. Step 4. Build your workflow.
A single page called My First AI Learning Workflow. And I'm looking at the requirements for this artifact, and I'll be honest, my immediate instinct is to cheat the system.
How so?
Well, if I ask the AI to summarize our conversation into a workflow, it's going to generate a beautiful 5-page document with elegant tables, bolded headers, and comprehensive bullet points.
Oh, definitely.
It will look incredibly professional. So why am I being forced to water down that complex, impressive output into a single page?
This is perhaps the most common trap learners fall into. They want to submit something that looks visually impressive, assuming that length equals quality. But consider the cognitive load.
Right.
If your workflow is 5 pages long, you are never going to use it the next time you sit down to learn Figma or advanced SQL. It introduces way too much friction into your daily routine. It will just gather digital dust. More importantly, simplifying complex AI output forces you to synthesize the information.
Synthesis being the mechanism that actually encodes the memory. If I just download the AI's 5-page summary, my brain bypasses the productive struggle required to internalize those concepts.
Exactly. The act of deciding what to cut and what to keep is where the actual learning crystallizes. And that synthesis leads directly into the final requirement of the assignment. Step 6. The knowledge extraction phase.
The extraction.
Yes. You are required to write a short 5-line synthesis note entirely in your own words. No AI-generated text is allowed here.
This is where you bypass the copy-paste reflex entirely.
I see. The assignment forces you to articulate, in plain English, the useful pattern you uncovered, the exact danger you want to avoid moving forward, and the specific piece of information you verified during your reality check.
That extraction phase is where the knowledge transfers from the AI's external memory into your own internal neural network. Without that deliberate act of extraction, the conversation simply fades from your working memory the moment you open a new browser tab.
It's like the difference between taking a quick photograph of a mountain range on your phone and actually sitting down to paint it. Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Painting takes significantly longer. It requires effort and correction, but you will remember every tree and shadow because your brain had to actively process the landscape.
Exactly.
So you have done the heavy lifting. You have built the one-pager. You have extracted the knowledge. Let's talk about the final wrap-up and what the instructors are actually looking for when you submit this assignment. There's a 25-point grading rubric, right?
There is. So when you submit your document, it needs to include your initial problem brief, your opening prompt, a few of your follow-up questions, the 1-page workflow artifact itself, your verification note, and your synthesis. But it also includes a series of reflection questions.
Right, the reflection. And those reflection questions are incredibly revealing regarding the intent of the course. They ask things like, where did you still need to think for yourself? And what did the AI assume that you had to clarify or correct?
They really want to see the process.
The instructors aren't looking for a polished robotic essay. They're actively looking for the friction.
The source material is very clear about what constitutes a weak submission, too. A weak submission usually features a vaguely defined problem, a massive block of beautifully formatted AI text that the learner simply copied and pasted, zero evidence of verification, and a reflection that merely states, AI helped me learn a lot.
Yeah, if you submit a wall of robot text, you have completely missed the point of the dojo. The instructors want to see evidence of human ownership. They want to see where you disagreed with the machine, where you narrowed its focus, and where you forced it to explain itself.
The ultimate thesis of this module is that AI-first learning does not mean the AI does the learning for you. It is a partnership. The machine does the heavy lifting of information retrieval and structuring, but you must do the heavy lifting of comprehension, skepticism, and critical analysis.
You start from a real problem. You use the AI to generate momentum, you actively question its output, you verify what matters, and you extract the concepts into a workflow you can actually use.
That is the whole operating system right there.
To wrap up this deep dive, I'm going to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over as you sit down at your keyboard, log into the Legacy Dojo, and begin this assignment. We talked at the very beginning about that incredibly fast sports car and the necessity of installing the brakes.
Right.
And we have spent this entire conversation discussing ways to intentionally put friction back into your learning process, anchoring your problem, arguing with the AI, forcing reality checks, synthesizing the output by hand. So here's the question. If your new responsible AI learning workflow actually makes you significantly slower during your first 30 minutes of exploring a new tech topic, is that temporary friction actually the ultimate proof that you are sitting in the driver's seat and thinking for yourself?